Hi there, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Glenn Karwoski, who will share some of his insights regarding this year's presidential campaign. Glenn is founder of Karwoski and Courage. Sorry. It's a 100-member firm, 100-staff firm, downtown Minneapolis, in marketing communications. In the May issue of Twin City Business, I read his story on marketing, and specifically he talked about the presidential candidates and zeroed in on Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, and had some insights regarding their communication style. And so I called and talked to Glenn and thought this would be of interest to Rotarians, and he gladly said he would come and do this, so welcome to him. Just about a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, the bets were on Hillary Clinton to get the Democratic nomination without much trouble, and for Jeb Bush kind of leading the way with his $100 million in the bank account. And now, 6 to 9 months later, Bernie Sanders did sort of fade away, but not without a struggle. Bernie, in his own style, his communication style of kind of standing there and waving and talking, but he was speaking from the heart. Donald Trump is unique, unprecedented, amazing, and he, of course, received the Republican nomination for the presidency. I think back of Trump and even Laurie Sturdivant, who was here about 6 months ago, made the comment wrote an article about being a celebrity. And Trump kind of fits that category. We voters tend to vote for celebrities. And she used the example of our own Jesse Ventura in our state. And we voted for him, and we elected him governor. So it's a strange world this campaign season. And I just thought that Glenn would be of great interest to all of us Rotarians, on his insight on this communication style of this political campaign. So please welcome Glenn Karwoski.
Thank you, John, and thank you all for inviting me here to speak this afternoon. I should mention that prior to writing my column in May, I had written another column several months earlier about Donald Trump and how he was marketing himself and how he had no chance of ever becoming the Republican nominee. So I stand corrected, and I actually wrote about that. I'm always happy to talk about such a non-controversial topic, so if you're looking for speakers for the fall, happy to come back and talk about religion. Anyway, I'm a big fan of quotes, so I'd like to start out with 2 quotes about politics from some well-known folks. The first: politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. The wisdom of Groucho Marx. Now that may sound a little jaded and skeptical. Then, of course, there was the great communicator, Ronald Reagan, who said, "It has been said that politics is the second oldest profession. I have learned that it bears a striking resemblance to the first." Okay, so let's be a little bit more serious here. I want to talk a little bit about how do candidates market themselves, and it really is not that dissimilar than in selling any other product. But as you know, the stakes are much higher and the considerations are much greater. You know, if we think about our daily lives and how we go about making purchases. If we are going to purchase, a huge ticket item, if we're going to buy a house, right, or buy a new car, we put a lot of thought and consideration into that versus going to the grocery store, and picking up something for dinner. So when it comes to an election, the stakes are so much higher, and the risks of making a wrong choice are so much greater. So that's why there's so much media coverage on all of this, as well as the fact that it makes for really good television, and it helps advertisers, it helps all of the networks and cable channels to make a lot of money, because when you're placing political advertising, and our agency has worked a little bit in that area, you have to pay for everything in advance. So the media properties love it when it's election time. So let's talk a little bit about positioning. So when we're selling a candidate, it really isn't any different than selling a product. And the basic tenets of positioning answer two questions. One is, what do you have and who is it for? Right? So if let's say I'm selling a brand new Lexus, right? I'm selling a luxury, high performance automobile to someone who wants to possibly make a comment about their status in life, someone who's concerned about a very comfortable and reliable vehicle. Well, that would be very different than if I was selling, say, a VW Beetle. All right? So when you're a candidate, it isn't any different, although it's a little bit more complicated. So when we have a specific mindset, when we ask a question, what do you have? And we have a typical demographic and psychographic in mind when we ask, who is it for? But when it comes to politics, it gets very tricky, because you have to appeal to a wide variety of audiences, yet at the same time, you have to make sure that your brand is not so watered down that it violates the number one rule of creating a strong brand. And I'll get to that in 1 second. But I always like a little audience participation when I speak. So if we were asking about, let's say, candidate Trump, what does he have? It's anybody. What does he have?
He's not a career politician. He's a regular person.
That is a huge comment. I love that comment. Yes. Right. Exactly. He's an outsider. Right? So what else about Donald Trump? Right? He's not a career politician, because we know how the American public is just in love with politicians these days. So what else? Yes?
He projects success.
He projects success. Right. He's a successful business person. Right? He has his own jet and everything else. Right? He's a successful business person. Yes?
He's well known. We know him from his TV presence, etc.
You're hired. Excellent. Thank you. Yes?
This campaign is focused on making America first.
Okay. Right. Right. There's a little bit of the Brexit influence there, I think, or a similarity, I should say. Yes?
I think he has a very special and very worthwhile family supporting him.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was evident at the convention. Who else? Yes?
His ideas are out of the box.
His ideas are out of the box. Yes, that's for sure. Very creative ideas. Yeah. No, I mean that genuinely. Yeah. What else?
He's authentic in that he doesn't fear speaking out against the enterprise, or which is the government. So calling out things like rigging systems. He's more than happy to do that without fear of people criticizing him.
Really good point. Really good point. Whether you like the man or not, he is authentic. What you see is what you get. And there is a big movement towards greater authenticity in general in marketing. So let's take a look at our other candidate, Hillary Clinton. What does she have?
Tons of experience.
A lot of experience, right. She's absolutely playing that experience card, absolutely. As Secretary of State, as a former First Lady, yes.
She's a woman.
She's a woman, okay, right. So there's something else that differentiates her, right? And we're going to get to differentiation.
Teflon.
Teflon, oh. I wonder who you're voting for. No, no, that's you know, good point. The Clintons have that reputation. They do.
She's a survivor.
She's a survivor. Yeah, she is. Very good. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
She's a really smart policy wonk.
Okay. Yeah. Right. She has a lot of policy experience, and we'll be hearing a lot more about that in the campaign. Yeah, Bill.
She got Bill.
She's got Bill. That's right, Bill. Right.
Not this Bill.
Yeah, right.
She's renowned as a very hard worker.
She is a hard worker. Yes, she is. Really good points. You guys are great at identifying what some of the differences are going to be. And that corresponds to who is it for? So who do you think Trump's primary appeal is to? If you were to think in terms of demographics, which are age, geography, things like that, as well as psychographics, which gets into attitudes. Who's it for? Yes?
I can say the middle-aged, white male, blue collar who's angry.
Okay.
Probably experience.
Okay. The middle-aged, blue-collar, angry voter. Angry voter. Who else? White male.
Non-establishment.
Non-establishment, right, anti-establishment. Okay. Who else is candidate Trump for?
Anti-government.
Anti-government, right, smaller government or no government. Well, you have to have a government, but I mean, of some kind.
Strong foreign policy presence.
Right. Strong policy?
People that
Foreign policy, I should say, yes.
people that are afraid that their future is not going to be as bright as
Right.
they would like it to be.
Right, right. It's all about making America great again, right? So people who are fearful of their future and prosperity, economic opportunities, things like that, okay? How about candidate Clinton? Who is she for?
Minorities. Minorities.
Okay, yep. Minority voters?
Disenfranchised.
Kids that want a free education.
Kids that want a free education, okay, yeah, yeah. You think that college debt is going to be a big issue in the election? I've heard some people talk about college debt as being the next housing crisis, and I don't know if that's true or not, but there's it's certainly out there. Yes.
I'd say people who pay attention quite a bit to politics, foreign affairs, current affairs, and the people who actually themselves take an interest in policy and policy issues.
The kind of students of politics and policy and such, okay? Is there anything else?
More educated voters.
More educated more educated vote versus the more blue-collar voters, okay? Anybody else?
People who don't care that she's lying.
People who don't care that she's lying, okay. I would really urge you to not hold back at all and to just really speak your mind. I'm just kidding. Yes.
People who are entitlements.
Entitlements. People with entitlements, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyone? Yeah, Bill.
Government people.
Government people, right? Okay, yeah. In favor of larger government. All right. Well, yes.
And just people who fear Donald Trump. I mean, just people who just can't abide the prospect of Donald Trump as president.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah.
You make really good comments. Yeah, Jim.
Income equality.
Yes. Okay.
I think that's a big issue.
Right. Oh, yeah, sure. You know, the one percenters and everyone else, right? So, okay. Great insights. Really, really great comments. I'd like to get back to violating the number one rule of creating a strong brand. So, branding 101 here, or at least what my philosophy of branding 101 is, and that is that strong brands have three characteristics. They are distinctive in that they have a unique proposition, something that sets them apart from their competitors. That, of all of the characteristics of strong brands, is the toughest. It's really difficult. So when you think of traditional branding, right? Let's look at some of our hometown companies. Target stores, right, is a great example of a strong brand, right? At Target, you expect more and pay less, right? They were the first retailer to bridge the gap between a discount store and being upscale. And the reason I know that is I worked on Target years and years ago. We work for Walmart now, who I was happy to learn has made a contribution to the Rotary here. But what Target did is they said they were going to be an upscale discounter. And I would go to New York and talk to people about that, and they would look at me like I was crazy. Like that was an oxymoron. How can you be upscale and also be a discounter? Well, what Target did is they created a whole new category of retailing, the upscale discounter. So they are a brand that is very unique, right? They are a very unique brand. So when you look at the candidates, and you perfectly alluded to this, they have tried to create a unique selling proposition. With Donald Trump, he says that he is an outsider, right? He isn't going to take money, well, at least in the primary season, he wasn't going to take money from anyone, right? He's kind of law and order. He's very different than anything that we have seen out there, right? He is unfiltered. He is often unscripted. He is an authentic brand, though, that's for sure. With Hillary Clinton, she is positioning herself as experienced. She is someone that can be trusted more in terms of she's positioning herself as a little bit more even-keeled, not as emotional. I think when it comes to distinctiveness, I think that that Donald Trump is probably winning that battle. And that isn't necessarily saying it's good or bad. It's just, I think his brand is much more distinctive than Hillary Clinton's is, right? Relevant. Here is the number 2 characteristic. Does it make sense for me? Right? How does this affect my world? We make judgments based on whether something either serves to enhance or thwart our goals, right? So when we're looking at a candidate, it's very personal, because that is the psychological basis for making judgments. Will this choice serve to either enhance or thwart my goal? And last, how consistent are they? Can they be counted on to be who or what they are? Right? So if you look at these three characteristics, just a show of hands, not necessarily who you're voting for, because this is not a political, it's not a political organization, and this is a nonpartisan talk here, so I'm totally impartial here. But just out of curiosity, who would you say is a stronger brand? How many of you would say that Donald Trump is a stronger brand? Okay. How many of you would say that Hillary Clinton is a stronger brand? Okay. All right. There isn't a right or wrong answer there. Who is going to win this thing? Right? Who is going to win?
Jerry Johnson.
There you go. You know, it's funny. I was going to say Michael Bloomberg, right? No. Well, I think that this campaign, more so than anyone in recent history, is focusing on one of the foundational elements of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs is basically a pyramid that says, as we go through those needs, we reach towards higher ideals. Well, the very basic need is physiological. Have we got food and shelter? Okay. Right after that is safety. How safe are we? How safe and secure are we? And I think, really, when you look at the selling of the president in 2016, I think that is what is at the heart of this campaign. A very basic need. How safe are we? And when I look at both of the candidates, I think there are two sides here. One is that Donald Trump has done a very good job of scaring a lot of us, right? Either rightly or wrongly. That the fear of terrorism, not only in the U.S. but globally, is in the news every single day. And I think that he's done a pretty good job of seizing that, of making that a focus of his campaign. How safe are you? Right? I mean, it could be, who was it? Was it Ronald Reagan who talked about, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Well, do you feel safer now than you did 4 years ago, or less safe? And I'm just a rhetorical question. I'm not choosing sides here, but I think that that's a strong argument. You know, he makes a strong argument. There's a lot of fear out there. On the other hand, I think that Hillary Clinton is talking about the fear of giving the wrong person power and authority. So I really think that there are two sides of this campaign. And in all the advertising that you're going to be seeing, I think that this is going to be a very, very prevalent theme. And I think that her question is going to be about, what if? What if you give someone the power and authority to go to war? Right? What if you give someone the power and authority to ban, entire segments of the world's population from the United States? So I believe that her fear is all about, what if you elect him? What might happen? So that's really what I see in the selling of the president in 2016, the major theme. I think it is about fear. It's definitely about fear. And as we are going to get bombarded with television and radio and print messaging, as well as social media, that is the prevalent theme of the campaign that you will see. And I think that whoever makes the more convincing argument there to reduce our fear is who is going to win. I did want to leave time open for questions because, this is a very passionate topic, and I'm sure that some of you will have questions, so want to leave enough time for that, and I'm at my 20-minute limit as well. So this gentleman had his hand up first.
Would you comment on the challenges to the campaigns of controlling message in the face of social media? I guess that's it.
Sure. The question is about controlling messaging and positioning in the face of social media, because everyone is a reporter, everyone is a journalist, right? You really can't control social media. An interesting fact, Donald Trump's campaign is really running behind in terms of social media. His campaign only started doing paid search advertising in June of this year, in June of 2016. Hillary Clinton started doing paid search advertising in March of 2016. Trump, in terms of social media, had a couple initial blunders. That they were buying lists, and some of the lists were just spam lists. They were not initially capturing email addresses, and if you want to be effective with whether it's email marketing or whatever it is, you need to start capturing email addresses. So I would say he's trailing Hillary Clinton as far as social media goes. But that said, he is the king of Twitter. I mean, he gets so much free media, and everything he tweets, it winds up on the nightly news. But social media is something that, more so than any other campaign, is kind of a wild card out there, because it can, it goes either way. It's so unpredictable, and that's one of the hallmarks of Trump, is that he is unpredictable. He is not scripted, which again is playing to one of his differentiating factors. So I'd say his unpredictability of messaging, is probably one of his strengths. But social media changes the entire game, for sure, especially among younger voters. Big difference. Yes?
Continue on that line, how
Yes.
then does that affect the amount of money the candidates decide to spend on conventional advertising?
Sure. So I don't know if everyone heard that question, but it's how do the results of social media ultimately impact the amount of paid media advertising? I think that there will be shifts in terms of the more traditional forms of advertising, television, radio, and outdoor. I think that a lot of that stuff has been locked up already, but then they have alternative budgets that I think will probably get poured into social media advertising. So whether it's search advertising or or email, whatever it is, that those budgets will be more variable. And I think that the media buys are fairly locked up in terms of huge expenditures. So whether it's outdoor or television, especially in the battleground states. But with social with social media advertising, with paid media advertising, you can shift that very rapidly, like basically overnight, with programmatic advertising. That really, it gives you an ability where it isn't a person necessarily sitting there and analyzing data. It's an algorithm that is looking for trends and monitoring stuff, and at certain trigger points, it makes automatic buys. That's part of what's relatively new in advertising, programmatic advertising. Yes?
Now, just had very nice and very clear understanding of what's going to be happening, like fear is the major thing. But the election is in the hands of the voters, and each voter has a power. Doesn't the education of the voter, whether it's so easy to understand the fear of terrorism versus the fear of some non-person having the power and authority. To one voter it means something, to another voter would mean another thing.
Right.
And the total population of our country, do the voters really understand it? Because I heard that when the Brexit was happening, 80% of the people was predicted they are not going to leave. And then after it got decided, the biggest hits were on the Google, what is EU?
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. Do the voters really consciously look at this and say that it's about fear? I don't know if it's conscious, but I do think that fear is something that is very emotional. And whether it's conscious or not, I do think because it is such a basic and kind of primal need that we have to feel safe, that whether it's conscious or not, it'll be one of the primary factors. I wouldn't say that it's the only factor. But in talking about, comprehending, like whether it's about fear or whatever the issues are, and this is a generalization, that traditionally the Democratic Party has been too intellectual in its messaging. And that's one of the reasons why they were losing elections. When you had candidates like a Ronald Reagan or George Bush, they were plain talking people that made concepts very easy to understand. The Democrats have had a tendency to kind of over-intellectualize. Now that's, has been remedied, but that was a tendency for a long time. So it's kind of the KISS principle, right, of keeping it simple. Yeah.
So you mentioned the two aspects of this fear side, and I can understand what you're saying, but I also could see that both these themes are dangerous for the respective candidates, because the fear of terrorism could morph into the fear of violence, which some people who are opposed to Trump say, well, he's going to go on violence.
Right.
And by the same token, maybe Hillary Clinton is the wrong person considering some of her background. So I mean,
right.
These themes could come back and bite them, basically.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of this is very nuanced. It gets very, very personal because, it's really walking a fine line between really scaring people versus having them very concerned. And it's really depending on whose side you're on, who you're going to say is the lesser of, of two evils in some, in some cases.
Well, I think that is the key difference to this particular election, because I think you'll find that people more than ever are voting against instead of in favor of. In the past elections, you see someone's for so-and-so, someone's for so-and-so. But this election, it's someone, I'm not for so-and-so, so I'm going to vote for the other person. Or I'm not for so-and-so, I'm going to vote for the other person. And that has two different effects. One, it has the voting for the other person. The other is that the people may not even come out because they'll say, well, we don't like either one of them, and so we're not going to come out and vote. So I think the first time in all of my years that the two major candidates have had negative approval ratings.
Right.
In the past, no matter whether you were for someone or against them, the candidate would have a favorable approval rating. And this year, they both have a strong negative approval rating. And so I think that's going to be a major factor, which might take all these other factors and turn them upside down.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really a good point, that people are voting against someone else instead of voting for a particular candidate. And I think if we look back at the election when the state of Minnesota elected Jesse Ventura governor, it was, I think, a large part of that was a vote against, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. No. I will go peacefully. Something I said. No, if we look back to the Jesse Ventura phenomena, it really was a vote against Norm Coleman and Skip Humphrey, who were both basically career politicians. So I think that's an excellent point. And we have time for one more question. This gentleman back here who hasn't had a chance to ask one yet, I'll take one more.
Thinking about this for a while, what would be the next change for each of these candidates? Given the current situation, Trump emphasizing terrorism, Clinton, wrong person of color. What do you think the next move should be?
What should be the next move? I think if I was Trump, I don't know if I would change my strategy right now because it's pretty powerful. If I were Hillary Clinton, I think I would try to probably focus a little bit more on what the possibilities are. So maybe elevate the conversation a little bit, but if she keeps on hammering about, well, how dangerous Trump is, I think that's a message that gets old after a while, where I think that if Trump keeps on emphasizing safety and security, it's really a message that gets reinforced in news and events every day, because there is an example every day of some kind of violence or terrorism. So I think that helps to keep his message fresher versus hers, where I think if she really wants to differentiate, it's got to be more than, I'm not him. It's got to be more about, well, here's what I can bring to the table. So that's what I do.
Stick around to answer some more questions?
Sure. Good.